Okay, so our next speaker is Miss Cheryl Coleman. Throughout her 43-year career, Cheryl worked as a community health nurse with Indian Health Services, as a patient and staff educator at OSU Medical Center, and recently retired from her position as the NICU lactation consultant at Hillcrest Medical Center. Since retirement, Cheryl has focused on her love of running and work with COBA. So let's all welcome Cheryl.
All right. Sarah, are we ready?
Yes, ma'am.
And you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, oh my gosh, this has been so wonderful. It's been a fabulous day. I haven't been able to tear myself away from the computer. Thank you, everybody, so much, and for all the work that we put into this. This is a topic that is absolutely near and dear to my heart. Many years ago, as I taught a postnatal educator workshop, and it was preparing for that and teaching that workshop that I finally realized, or it finally hit me upside the head, how important the role of lactation was in perinatal loss. And so that became a passion of mine, and that passion led to me attending the Resolve Through Sharing bereavement workshops and becoming a coordinator, helping set up a bereavement program at a hospital I was at that we felt was very successful, and really, again, was amazing. The families that I worked with, I have the utmost respect for. And so have continued that to this day. First off, we've again got the disclosure slide, and I have nothing to report there. So what I want to do over the next 45 minutes or so is discuss the prevalence and the unique challenges of perinatal loss, along with the process of milk production, identify effective communication techniques to use with these parents, and review the process of milk donation as well as the suppression of milk after loss. So we'll get into that. Well, unless you've been under a rock, we all know Megan and Harry are about to have their third child. And the article that she wrote for the New York Times, November of last year, after suffering a loss, to me says so much about what perinatal loss is. What she stated was, losing a child means carrying an almost unbearable grief, experienced by many, but talked about by few. In the pain of our loss, my husband and I discovered that in a room of 100 women, 10 to 20 of them will have suffered from miscarriage. Yet despite the staggering commonality of this pain, the conversation remains taboo, riddled with unwarranted shame and perpetuating a cycle of solitary mourning. That paragraph alone just broke my heart. This is something that we can have an effect on, that we can change as lactation providers. Okay, great. Froze up. How did that happen?
What? Oh, there you go.
There it goes. Okay. Okay, first off, I want to talk about, okay, what is perinatal loss? Who are we talking about? What folks are we discussing here? During pregnancy, the loss can be an ectopic pregnancy, where the pregnancy occurs outside of the uterus, usually in the fallopian tube, results in an ending of the pregnancy. A molar pregnancy, which is where the embryo dies, but the placenta continues to grow. Miscarriage, which is defined as loss before 20 weeks. And also medical interruption. Stillbirth, which is again that loss after 20 weeks and 350 grams. Neonatal death, which is that death within the first 28 days after birth. And then three that I hadn't necessarily considered, but came to me recently, and it kind of took my breath away. I thought, well, yes, of course, these people do experience loss, and certainly as lactation is going to occur also with child protection removal, surrogacy, and also adoption. So it really encompasses a lot. And I do want to mention too, I know Becky showed some amazing statistics on the very beginning of the day. And I took statistics out of this because once I started really looking at them, I realized that and first off, reporting is not consistent across the country. Secondly, their definitions are different. And mostly they start counting infant loss or perinatal loss at 28 weeks. Well, we've lost a lot of moms before that 28-week time period. So the numbers aren't necessarily characteristic of exactly what's going on and what people are experiencing. So first, I just kind of wanted to go over a few terms that are related, but still different. Grief is that constellation of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors surrounding the loss of a loved one. Whereas mourning is then the outward expression of those feelings. And those are often, mourning behaviors are often are influenced by customs and by culture. And we see that a lot, and it's sometimes very difficult for one culture to understand another culture's mourning behaviors, thinking that must be something wrong with them, or why are they so quiet, or why are they so loud? Well, these are things that are affected by culture and must be accepted by all of us. And then bereavement is that entire process of anticipation, the death, and then the adjustment to living after the death of a loved one. So they're all, like I said, interrelated, but maybe used a little bit differently. So first I want to talk about understanding grief and postpartum. These families, the work that they do is absolutely incredible because they have to go through the tasks involved with both of these processes. As I mentioned, I did teach a postnatal educator program for several years, and we based that educational program on the work of Ramona Mercer and Louise Mardell, done, late 80s, 90s. Even the research on postpartum tasks that I've seen since then really still does revolve around these 5 tasks. So I've kept them because I really like them. First, the one that's always most obvious is physical restoration, that we've always judged what postpartum is. The length of postpartum is 6 weeks, obviously, because this was one piece of physical restoration. We know it obviously lasts much longer than that. The emotional exploration. What does this experience mean to a mother? What does it mean about her? This is where the way people are treated in labor, during labor, makes a huge difference. They're also looking at how are we treating them during labor, in postpartum area. Their perception of how we're treating them makes a difference in this area as well, and how they perceive themselves as becoming a mother. The foundation for attachment. Some of the attachment begins before birth, but then the attachment process continues and really takes a huge jump with the birth and that time after birth. So developing that foundation for attachment with this baby. Learning to take care of the child. A huge piece of that, and one thing that moms are always concerned about, being able to take care of that baby. I had one mom call me every week after she had her baby, one who'd been in my childbirth class, saying, I've been able to keep him alive another week, because she was so unsure of her ability to care for this baby. And then also the redefinition of relationships. With each birth, and it doesn't matter if it's the first or the 5th or whatever, with each birth of a baby, a mother's relationship with every person in her life changes. It may be a monumental change, it may be just a small change, but with her mother, with her other parents and extended family members, with her partner, with other children. So there's all of these tasks.
I didn't watch it.
All of these tasks taking place. And as always, we don't get to do them one at a time. We don't get to finish the physical restoration before we hit the emotional exploration. New parents are being hit with all of these tasks and all of this work all at the same time. So it can be overwhelming. This is why they may be in that postpartum fog. Well, there's a lot going on for all of these families. Add to that the grieving process. This is one of my absolute favorite models of the grieving cycle. It's from 2001, some work out of University of Washington in Seattle. And we still have the loss, still have the tasks, but my previous work and even some of the other articles and slides that I had in my brief education program seemed so linear. You had the line chart graph going through task 1, task 2, task 3, task 4, going through all of these. This curved and open circle model just really speaks to me about what the grieving cycle is. There's still the tasks, the shock and denial, the anger and guilt, bargaining, tears and fears, the same steps, the same tasks. But this allows me to believe more the little 2 steps forward, 1 step back. We get to the adjustment and acceptance phase, and then there is a trigger of maybe something, a baby crying or a anniversary of death that pulls that family back to maybe the tears and fears phase. So there's that sliding back and forth around the circle. And then the openness of it, because it doesn't end. There's always those little triggers as people move on. The arrow meaning going onward and upward, but still that open cycle. And I took the term recovery out because I'm not a real fan of the recovery word, but I felt like integration. Again, what does this experience mean to them? What does it mean about them as they move forward as parents with a baby who is not with them or with the child who's not with them? So putting that all together, and I'm again overwhelmed with the work that these families are confronted with and the work that they do. There's physical aspects to both. The physical symptoms of grief, any postpartum mom can probably relate to: headache, nausea, sleep disturbances, food aversions, those kinds of things. That entire emotional exploration, there again, not only are they looking at us to see how do we perceive them with the birth, but how are we perceiving them now in the death of their baby? There's still some attachment issues we'll talk about a little bit later. Then you have all of the spiritual, social aspects, the redefinition and the relationship aspects. So these families are true superheroes, and they're having to make decisions that we can't even imagine having to make. Maybe an autopsy, disposition of the body, choosing a mortuary. Do they want a service? So there's amazing amount of work that these families are doing, and so deserving of our support as they work through both the tasks of postpartum and as well as the tasks of grief. So switching gears a little bit and talking about the process of milk production. Of course, from the moment of pregnancy, the breasts start doing their work. Hormones start the breast growth, which is oftentimes what women notice first in terms of pregnancy. Have the proliferation, the ducts, the lobes, everything's growing. Lactogenesis 1 is from 16 weeks to day 2 postpartum. So after 16 weeks of pregnancy, lactation occurs. So these moms that have early loss, and we heard it earlier too, with Dr. Morton's talk, you can't assume because a mom delivered early that she had this baby at 20 weeks and had this loss at 20 weeks, or she had this loss at 22, 24 weeks, that because it was early, that she will not produce milk. After 16 weeks of pregnancy, lactation is going to occur. These moms are deserving of our support. Lactogenesis 2 is postpartum day 3 to 8. And where are these moms day 3 to 8? They're usually not in the hospital. So those of us in the hospital, these moms have already come and gone. And that's why it's sometimes difficult to catch them and discuss this information. It's triggered by the drop in the progesterone levels, the delivery of the baby and the placenta. That's often the milk coming in phase. that copious milk secretion, the breasts are full and warm, engorgement phase, those things are happening at that point in time. And then lactogenesis 3 or galactopoiesis is an older term, postpartum day 9 through the beginning of involution. In most cases, again, this is usually our later loss. NICU moms, they've already begun that process of milk expression, and they may have been pumping for a period of time or breastfeeding for a period of time. They're maintaining that milk process. So again, after 16 weeks, they're making milk. They're deserving of our attention in this process. So there's 3 types of responses to death. First off is avoidance. We are afraid of death. Many people are afraid of death. They're also afraid of saying or doing the wrong thing. So with avoidance, we stay away, or we avoid. This is where I have the love-hate relationship with the signs that we put on the doors of the room. On one hand, it's awfully nice to know that there's been a loss, so people aren't bounding into the room, say, oh, where's the baby? Is the baby in the nursery? Or how's everything going? Because that really lays some guilt on the family or on everybody. It can really trigger some loss, and staff feels horrible. But I have also seen family avoid the room like the plague. I have had to encourage or tell people, you have to go in and take care of this family. You cannot avoid going in, cleaning, doing lab, doing whatever needs to be done to take care of that family. People avoid the room like crazy. And then when you try to go in the room, you go, why are you going in there? She doesn't have her baby. Well, that's when I'm able to provide some education for whoever made that statement about the role of lactation after loss. And many times the answer was always, oh, I never even thought about that. You're right. So we have a role with educating those around us as well. Second is insensitive or moralizing. The moms go, well, it's good it happened early. It's, you can always have another. You have an angel in heaven, to which one mother responded, I don't want an angel in heaven. I want my baby here with me. So none of those do anything to help the mother feel better. They discount the mother's experience many times, and they also discount this baby that she has had. And then supportive statements can be as simple as, I'm sorry. I am so very sorry for your loss. This must be very hard for you. How are you feeling about all of this? Do you want to talk about it? Or just sitting with them and letting them know. Sometimes it's not saying anything at all. So these are the responses that we see most often. We want to try to avoid the first 2 and really focus on increasing the supportive language. So communication after any losses, our goal is to find out where they are to help them discover what they need. It is not up to us to make the decisions for them, but it's to help them find what is it that they need to move forward. Providing that anticipatory guidance, because we do know some of the things that they are going to experience, particularly around the lactation piece. And we want to help provide them with information so that they can make their own decision. There's nothing more heartbreaking than having a parent tell you, well, oh, I had no idea I could donate my milk. I had no idea I could continue to do this. There's oftentimes people don't think about it and don't think about the fact that there are options with lactation. We just assume that everybody wants to suppress lactation, and we go along and don't even offer any other options on many areas when a loss occurs. So our goal is to find out where they are, help them discover what they need. These questions often, again, are probably best for early loss, but can be used at any point in time. When did you learn you were pregnant? For some, it may have just been when the loss occurred that they learned they were pregnant. For others, it may have been considerably earlier, but asking that question, let me try that again, allows you to kind of see where they're at in their pregnancy acceptance. There's three avenues, or three, I don't know, hate to use the word tasks again, but they're kind of three tasks in pregnancy acceptance. The first one is, I'm pregnant. It's that pregnancy validation. And again, some people may just be right there at that point in time. First is, validating the pregnancy, I'm pregnant. In most cases, there's not a lot of attachment that has happened at that point in time. Not everybody, I learned long ago, never to say never. But usually with that pregnancy validation phase, there's not a lot of attachment. And these are the people usually will see loss as a part of life. The second phase is the fetal embodiment, which is, I'm going to have a baby. There's that realization that there is a small person growing within them. Used to in the old days, we would expect that fetal embodiment phase to kind of kick in when they first started feeling movement. Now it seems as though that shifted a little bit more forward with more ultrasounds being pretty much standard of care early in pregnancy, and mom seeing baby move, heartbeat much earlier than feeling the baby move. So the second phase is, I'm going to have a baby. Attachment absolutely can be happening within that phase. And then the last is, I'm going to be a mother, and that's that role transition. And in that role transition phase, this is where that woman is looking around at everybody. She's looking at other mothers. How do they take care of their child? How do they hold their baby? What things do they have that I might need? How was I mothered? How is my partner mothered? What is it that I want to do as a mother? This is when we make those unrealistic expectations that our baby is never going to do that, which of course we know then they all will. But so there's that role transition that happens too. And in many cases, those people do, when we've hit that phase, we do see ourselves as mothers of this baby who has not yet been born. What plans have you made also kind of gives you an idea on timing, and kind of really see between the two questions themselves actually really help you see where, how they're going to perceive this loss. In a couple of earlier research studies on miscarriage, and again, miscarriage being a loss fairly early in pregnancy, there were two studies to see what maternal perception of the loss was. And in these two studies, one was 71%, the other was 75%. So over 70% of mothers saw it as a loss of a baby. Even early in pregnancy, saw it as loss of a baby, versus 25 to 29% of them seeing as a part of life. So those two areas can give you an idea on what's going on. If you hear the term baby, you want to view them as parents. You want to offer them choices to see, name, asking them, what is the baby's name? Offering those tangible mementos as well. And I will tell you, probably the most impactful thing that you can do when working with these families, once you hear that term baby, or at any point, you can kind of see how it's going, you can ask, have you named your baby? And if you get a name, and I will often ask, what's the background to the name? How did you come up with that? And then remember that name and use it every time. Don't talk about the baby or usually I try to avoid saying the baby. I would just say, use that baby's name, and you will see it in their faces. I promise you. It is definitely, and very, as I said, probably the most impactful thing you can do. So discussing lactation after loss, we want that conversation to be open, non-judgmental, and really providing some anticipatory guidance for them. It should be presented outside of the context of other physiologic changes. In other words, I don't want it to be part of the going out the door checklist, the discharge checklist. Just be, okay, here's lactation, here's what you could feel, here's your choices, bye-bye. Not that everybody goes through the discharge checklist like that, but it should be presented out of the context of the other changes. And should also include written material that allows the mom and family to process the information for decision making. So there, again, how many other decisions did we talk about that they were making regarding this baby and all of the tasks that they're going through? They will probably change their minds several times about all of these decisions before they finally settle on something. And so that is definitely part of the process. The written material, I will always tell them, I don't expect you to remember what I am saying to you, but here's a handout that has that same information. So approaching these families, what I found helpful is kind of initially, particularly with a stillbirth or a loss during pregnancy, is kind of getting some information from the staff before I go into a room. And again, here's where I sometimes would hit the, what are you going to see her for? She doesn't have her baby, your lactation. And providing education first to that staff member, and then finding out kind of where this family is at, who's in the room, how are things going, you know, anything that I might feel like I wanted to know about what was happening before I went into the room, so get a good feel there. But going in and just saying, I am so sorry for your loss. I know this must be really hard for you, but the message of pain and loss didn't get to the breast to stop their normal function of making milk for your baby. And I would like to talk with you a little bit about your options that you have available to you. So that would kind of kick it off and get it started. Often would ask, you know, is this a good time? Is this a good time to talk? If the baby was in the room with them, would talk about, you know, look at the baby, talk about services, the things that we talked about, the mementos. So just kind of give them time. Do you want to talk about it first? So I don't just bust right into, let's talk about lactation. You know, maybe if the, you know, talk to the family or talk to the mom a little bit first. So in going from there, you know, then offering them the options, and we'll talk a little bit more about the options here in a minute. Boy, I miss the face-to-face conversations. Talk a little bit about those here in a little while. And then also, as I said, give them that handout. And if there are other family members there, I always wanted to make sure I was turned so I could talk to the whole room as much as possible at the time. And then also offered the other family members a handout as well. So that if most times they would say, oh no, she's got one, we'll take a look at what the information that she has, but at least offered it to them in case they wanted to look at that information as well. So we want it to be open, want to really include everybody, let them know you're sorry, but this is what you want to talk with them about. Let them know, said, you know, hey, you're not going to remember what I'm telling you, but here's some information and I will be back and I will try and check with you again later. If it was one of the NICU moms, and I say that just because I've had more experience with this with our NICU moms, or if it was a later loss, and I knew the mom had been pumping. Many times I knew them, I could go and look in the freezer and refrigerator and say, okay, I know I've got this much milk in the freezer and refrigerator before I go talk to them. Would go ahead and say, hey,
oh no.
First off, start off with, you know, hey, how are you feeling? Because many times surrounding the loss, they've missed at least one pumping episode. So there may be one or two pumping episodes that they've missed. They may be miserable. And there have been several times where I've said, hey, how are you feeling? And I get, oh my God, I'm miserable. I'm really hurting. I haven't pumped in 8 hours and it really hurts. And I says, let me get a pump. Let's go ahead and do this first. And then I'll talk with you about what your options are here. So would often start with that with those moms, but just again, knowing where they're at and what they want to do. And that would also, oftentimes we were pumping, give a lead in to talking about what their options were going forward. I did find that so many of the NICU moms where we had milk in our refrigerators and freezers felt as though the milk was ours. So it was very often I would have to remind them, no, this milk is not ours, it is yours. And one of the conversations was to, hey, I've got, 4 bottles here. I've got, probably 20 some bottles in the freezer. You don't have to make a decision right now. I will hold your milk. You take your time, make a decision as far as what you would like to do with the milk. And then, I will keep in touch with you and we'll go from there. So letting them know that it is their milk and also that they don't have to decide right then was very helpful. Some chose, they already had kind of an idea. They wanted to go ahead and take it with them. I would say probably the majority of the moms that I worked with would contact later about either picking up or donating the milk or whatever they wanted to do with it. So it was definitely different. So. So as far as the printed information goes, I want to kind of go over, this is an excellent article from Carol about what printed information should contain. And these were the guidelines. And I was very happy to know that most of what I handed out was in there, that I hit most of the guidelines, not all of them, but I hit most of the guidelines with the handout that I've used for several years. But first is that acknowledgement of human milk and lactation after fetal infant death. That again, just as I said, we're sorry for your loss, but no, the breasts haven't stopped their function. And even though you don't have that baby, milk is going to be made and your body is going to produce breast milk. Also want to talk about those breast changes that are associated with that milk production. The fullness, the warmth, the engorgement, there may be leaking, the possibility of infection, and you want to give those advice on how to alleviate those symptoms. Also want to provide a description of full range of options for suppression of that milk, to continue expressing the milk, including milk donation. And also a recognition that additional bereavement or lactation support may be necessary. So it's very helpful and very good idea to make sure if you've got other community resources for bereavement support or for lactation support, to make sure that you have those numbers listed on that handout as well. So basic items to be covered on any printed information, so that allows them to make the decision for themselves. Ideas for printed information. The Oklahoma Mother's Milk Bank has a handout that I'll show you here shortly. Another one is Lactation After Loss through Empty Arms Bereavement Program. Or you can write your own. Mine was about 1.5 pages on 8.5 by 11 paper that I just wrote up many years ago and have kind of adjusted it periodically over the years. You can always, put this together. You've got the guidelines for what should be included. You can certainly put your own together. This is the Milk While Mourning. It is a beautiful trifold brochure done by the Oklahoma Mother's Milk Bank. It's one side. And it does talk about why am I making milk, talks about expressing milk, stopping the production, including the option for milk donation. So very well written, very simply done. On the other one, here's the Lactation After Loss. This is just 3 pages. Also a trifold brochure, has a lot more words, but it is also quite well done. And so that's available as well. So looking at what some of the different options are. Milk suppression options, as I first started doing some research and looking at what I had and wanting to make sure it was kind of evidence-based, I read one article that said, well, there's very little evidence for any of these milk suppression options. And I thought, oh, that can't be right. So I started looking at more articles and research, and darned if that almost all of them said the same thing. There is not a whole lot of research on for the evidence-based research on these non-pharmacologic milk suppression options. But they were pretty consistent across the board, and most of us have used these and found them to be very effective. Cold to reduce the swelling, to provide comfort. What we want to do with that engorgement, that swelling that's taking place, to encourage drainage of the edema and the lymph drainage. So the cold can certainly help that. It can be a bag of frozen vegetables, ice packs. Another option that's further down on that 1, 2, 3, fourth one down, the cabbage leaves applied to the breast to reduce swelling. I was amazed as discussing and mentioning cabbage leaves as to how many people actually already knew about the cabbage leaves option. We'll say the first time we used that with a mom, she put those inside her bra and just said, oh, that feels so heavenly. So whether it's a cold or whether it's something special with that cold wash cabbage, they don't know. But it definitely does seem to help. It can be applied to the breast 15 to 20 minutes, 3 to 4 times a day. Most recommended not applying heat. I did see a couple of resources that talked about standing in the shower, letting the warm water hit the breast and allowing them to leak. But by and large, the resources all said, do not use heat. Lying on your back, again, helping that lymph and fluid drainage. Hand expressing. These moms should not be denied a breast pump. A breast pump shouldn't be taken out of the room. I've caught people taking breast pumps out of a room after a baby passed away. No, 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 keep that in there, we may need it. So their pumps should be available for these moms. I don't think I need to say another word about hand expression. We talked about that, great, but every mother, including mothers who have experienced loss, need to know how to hand express. And of course, the first time you bring up pumping or hand expression or any kind of expression, everybody goes, whoa, whoa, wait a minute, we don't want to make more milk. So again, educating and letting them know, no, pumping to comfort will not produce more milk. Pumping to empty will. We want to provide some relief. So pumping to comfort will help. Wearing a sports bra where there's no restriction. We don't want any real tight underwire issues, but usually a sports bra can provide some slight pressure and support and help reduce milk production. We do not advocate breast binding any longer. And medication. And looking at some international articles and some reviews, systematic reviews, the literature found cabergoline, so you can say that right. Cabergoline is a drug very similar to bromocriptine, which we used to use in the past. It suppresses the excretion of prolactin at the pituitary gland. So it directly inhibits the prolactin release, which is exactly what bromocriptine did as well. But it does have a much greater safety I'm going to try to remember what the word is, safety profile than bromocriptine. Bromocriptine tended to have a lot of cardiovascular side effects. So far in a recent systematic review of the literature, the main side effects they found from cabergoline were headache and nausea, and they were very self-limited. So while it has not received much use in North America and Europe and Great Britain, they are using cabergoline to inhibit lactation. And given, I think they usually give about 1 milligram within the first 24 hours, they found that milk inhibition really took place within about 24 hours, within 1 day. And if they were suppressing milk, moms who had been pumping or feeding for a while, it tended to take about 3 days. So while, again, I put the question mark because we probably aren't going to see it anytime real soon here, but I did want to make you aware of it as an option that is being offered in other parts of the world. Again, milk expression options. I need to say nothing more about hand expression. Again, every mother should be offered that opportunity. A mom may have a pump at home already that she got from her insurance company. She may not. She may be a hand pump. Again, if it's a NICU mom or mom who's been pumping for a period of time, she may have the hospital grade pump available. These mothers, again, I will say it again, should not be denied a breast pump. They should be offered that pumping option. They may choose to dump the milk. They may choose to save the milk. This is the other options that we're going to discuss with them, but they should be offered these options for expression. When moms are choosing to express milk, again, as I said, one option can be just to dump the milk as they slowly stop the milk production and to suppress the milk. Usually if a mom has been pumping for a while and she chooses to suppress lactation, and we'll tell her to just wait until she feels the fullness, pump to comfort, and just kind of do that pump to comfort piece until that milk stops, milk flow stops. Really don't ever want people to stop cold turkey, because that's when you really do risk increase that risk for infection and greater health, adverse health outcomes for them. So we certainly, that is one thing we want to avoid. So we do want to give them those expression options, particularly if they've been pumping for a while and want to avoid that stopping cold turkey piece. This is the Oklahoma Mother's Milk Bank website. If they're choosing to donate, again, you may have that information on a handout for them, or you can certainly make sure that they know, or even if you forget, that this is the website, this is where you want to go to find information about what your mom may need to do if she's lost a baby and she's choosing to continue to pump milk and save it. So in the bereavement program site tab is the information on how to donate my milk. And I'm so glad we got to see that video beforehand on the milk bank showing the process, talked a little bit about the process, as well as what takes place when they do. It was fun to see the video of the thawing and the whole milk pasteurization process. So does cover how they donate their milk, what the process is, who to call, or going online at the okmilkbank.org to get all the information that they need. I am going to touch a little bit on informal milk sharing, because again, I've had a couple of moms over the years who really wanted to donate. They'd had some experience with some of the informal milk sharing programs, and that was what they wanted to do. So just so you're aware of what programs are out there, I know I've had a couple of moms who just said, I'd like to take my milk with me because I have a relative, a friend who really could use it, and I would like to share it with them. This is their milk. Again, I have to remind them, this is their milk. This is not for us to say, well, you really shouldn't do that, or it is kind of risky, so be careful doing that. There is risk involved, and they should know that, but this is their milk, so they can do that. The two more widely known programs, Eats on Feets, and that's their website, and then Human Milk for Human Babies. Their main website is under repairs last I looked, but the Human Milk for Human Babies Oklahoma Facebook page was active and had some information on it. So just a couple of really impactful, amazing things that the Oklahoma Mother's Milk Bank does for the families in their bereavement program who are donating milk. This is the memorial tree. And when a mom who has lost a baby chooses to continue pumping and donating her milk, or pumping any milk, when she brings the milk in, she's able to pick out a butterfly and place that butterfly on the tree, on the memorial tree. And then a plaque for her baby is placed next to her butterfly on that tree. They also pick out an identical butterfly to take home as a memento that they can display in honor of their donation of milk for other babies across the state. And this picture is of a mom who donated, and her baby's, I guess this is the little brother, but she donated milk as well. Another option, that thing that they provide, and is absolutely beautiful, is the milk jewelry. They have kits, and the reason I showed you this is, well, the pictures they sent were great, and I had to get some explanation, but these are kind of do-it-yourself kits. So there is a solution that's placed in with the milk, and then you boil the milk with the solution, which solidifies the milk, which is what you see on the left-hand side. And then once solidified, it is put within the locket, and then it's dipped again in another solution, and then provided to the family. I will say, when I talked to the milk bank, they mentioned that their source for these lockets has dried up. And so they are looking for another source for breast milk jewelry. So if you know of any, contact the Mother's Milk Bank, please. They would appreciate hearing from you and really looking for another source because they haven't been able to do the lockets recently. But the breast milk jewelry is another nice memento of their donation. Moms, well, in fact, I'm just going to read this because this says it all. This is from a mom when we did the October COBA newsletter on perinatal loss. I received this beautiful couple of paragraphs from one of the mothers who was donating to the milk bank. When I found out last December we were expecting our third child, I never thought I would be in this position. On July 9th, 2020, our third child, a little girl, was stillborn at 36.6 weeks. We named her Melody Jean. She was 6 pounds, 3 ounces, and every bit as beautiful as her siblings. In my heart, as shattered as I was and still am, I knew that I wanted to give her milk to fragile babies so they could have a chance to thrive. At the same time, it allows me to still have a physical connection to my daughter. I am not sure how long I will donate, but I am so thankful to have found this way to give in her name. I know others get it, and I don't feel so alone. In the articles about donation after loss, this is exactly what many, many mothers say they felt. It helped them with this grieving process and helped them to adjustment as a mother without their baby. It helped them with that connection, give them a connection to the baby that was not with them, and that help in helping others. And I've heard that I just want to help other babies. I've had moms being at a donation site where the mom says, I'm just so thankful that I can help other babies. So this is an amazing contribution that these families are making. And here's Brandy with her milk. This is what she's donating. And if you can read her shirt, I carried you every second of your life, and I will love you every second of mine. These families are so deserving of all of the support we can. And I will say that in terms of bereavement program, if you have a bereavement program, if you're in a hospital and it has a bereavement program, if you're in community, there's a program in your area that you can help with, please do so. First off, getting lactation in the door is hard. People still don't understand why lactation would need to be involved with bereavement. But we are a very important part of this process and what these people experience after loss, and we can help. We can support these families, and we can really break that cycle of what Meghan Markle called it, the cycle of solitary mourning, and help this with this very difficult life journey. I thank you. Again, this has been so very weird not having people in front of me to talk with. I love the interaction. I love being able to interact with you during the talk, but it is what it is for right now. I hope that we've been able to provide you with some new information that identified ways that all of us can help support these families in the incredible work that they are doing and going through at this point in time of their lives, and hopefully clarified the importance of lactation support after loss. So thank you again, and look forward to hearing from you. And I actually look forward to seeing everybody hopefully next year.
Thank you, Cheryl.